Welcome to the Retirement Roadmap by SHP Financial, a podcast empowering today's retirees and pre-retirees to make well-informed financial decisions that will help you spend more time living and dreaming than worrying and wondering. Are you ready to get started? Let's go. Welcome, everyone, to another edition of SHP Financial's Retirement Roadmap podcast. I'm your host today, Matthew Peck, and 'tis the season. Now, it's not Christmas season or the fall or any other holidays. It is graduation season. It is commencement. I just went to my first sort of graduation party the other day, and there was this young upstart about to enter the world after graduating from UMass Lowell, and it just made me think. What advice do we give to young graduates who are considering the financial planning field? Right? Like, what now? I mean, you graduate, you have a degree, and you're about to embark on your career and on your journey. And there might be some, moms and dads out there, or grandparents, and that are wondering, what does it take to enter the financial planning field, to work at a company like SHP Financial, to grow a book of business? What designations are necessary or helpful? What licenses are required? To help walk us through all of that, we're going to bring back a returning guest, Raphael Hanna, the NVIDIA specialist, from before. But he's a younger guy, a little bit more handsome, a little bit more hair in his head than I am right now. But
not a whole lot more.
Yeah, but I figure he'd be a great guy to explain that, but what his perspective was when he was first entering the financial planning field. A while ago now, but still within recent memory. I'll be able to share, kind of spin some yarns about what it was like back in the early aughts, early 2000s.
Back in your day.
Yeah, exactly. Before this cell phone thing or iPhone thing. But hopefully we could provide some guidance and some perspective to all the young graduates out there and their families to consider what is a very rewarding and fulfilling field that I look forward to, again, sharing our stories, but also telling you why it is a path that obviously we both believe is well worth taking. So without much further ado, again, Raph, welcome back to the show.
Awesome, Matt. Thanks for having me, and glad to be back.
Yeah, so I guess put yourself in those because I'm trying to think, how many years ago now? 8? 7? How many years did you graduate?
Going on, 6-7 years now.
6-7 years. Okay. So when you graduated from Stonehill, go Skyhawks.
Yeah, right. We'll take it. Yeah.
Right, absolutely.
Division I now.
D1, there you go.
Yeah,
there you go. Right. Yeah. Just in case, well, I'm sure there's a separate Skyhawks sports podcast, but that's not this one, Raph.
Not today. Yeah.
So tell, did you always want to become a financial planner? I mean, how did you get into the field? And literally take us back from when you literally have a cap and gown on, and what was next for you at that point?
It's a good question. So it was funny. My background before actually getting into financial planning was when I was an undergrad. I was actually a chemical engineer. Okay. So completely, 180 from kind of where I ended up. And I think that's kind of the trajectory a lot of people end up in. The saying is what you graduate with your degree is not what you end up pursuing. So I started off as a chemical engineer, but ended up pivoting to accounting and data analytics. And then, throughout that process, going into my senior year, was applying for internships, and kind of was networking with other alums, right? So, Stonehill had a pretty good, still does, alumni network. So, when you go through that internship process, you're just trying to network and leverage, people within the field, and then kind of stumbled upon a wealth management internship, and really didn't know too much about wealth management other than the fact that, you just manage people's retirements. Mm-hmm. But, thought that was an interesting career path just from the standpoint of, having the accounting background, doing, some level of financial planning kind of in college.
But did you think, or at least expect, so here you're an intern and you're walking with sort of a data analyst background. Did you then expect to then apply that? Did you say, I'm going to be crunching numbers and picking stocks? Or I guess what were your expectations?
It's a good question. I think, at least for me, I thought maybe I would do something on the tax side, right? Because obviously graduated with an accounting degree. So I thought maybe I would carve a niche within just the accounting tax planning piece of like wealth management, but obviously took the internship. It was on the finance side. So getting to understand like portfolios at a deeper level, getting to understand building financial plans on a deeper level. Obviously there's the tax component to that, right, as we both know, but yeah, no, it kind of segued into just the finance part just because of just how that internship had taken place.
And then from the internship, did you then work at that same company? Or let me back up. Did you then decide like, yes, this is the field for me after that internship?
Correct. So they hired me full time after I graduated. And then from that point forward, I was kind of just like, you know what? Accept the offer, kind of see what I think of the field on a full-time basis, and kind of fell in love with just like the whole client-facing aspect of what we do. Because at the end of the day, you know, we're in front of clients all day, every day. And the part that I kind of resonated with was that relationship aspect of it. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what I stuck with and, you know, brought us here today. So,
and you mentioned the relationship because like I think that's one of the biggest things that if sort of like a recent graduate asks about finance, I mean, it's like I can't stress that enough in regards to the importance of relationships and connecting with people and just talking with people and being able to talk with people. I mean, you would think that, oh, it's fine, it's numbers and it's planning and it's this and it's all of those things, but it's so relationship driven. And was that something that was always kind of came naturally to you as well? Like, I mean, is that why you also think maybe you sort of ended up in this field as well?
I think so. And obviously, like, the internship that I got to kind of kickstart the career was through, again, networking with alumni, you know, just trying to put yourself out there, right? You know, you kind of make your own luck with who you rub elbows with. And that's kind of really what led me to that point. So I think the relationship aspect when you're young and hungry to kind of build a career for yourself is super important, because you just got to put yourself in those uncomfortable positions to say, okay, you know, what do I want to pursue? And again, when you're in college, you don't know those things, but you got to talk to people right in those fields that you might be interested in to kind of get an idea, hey, could this be something that I want to do, right? And, you know, people might take a liking to you as, you know, my first firm did, and, you know, it kind of creates the career path from that point forward.
Well, and I want to go back to the idea of networking. I mean, I remember way back when, similar idea, like a young graduate, and, you know, my dad saying to me like, "Oh, son, you got to network," and I'm like, I don't know what that means exactly. Like, what do you just start to, you know, randomly shake people's hands and be like, hey, I'm looking for a job? I mean, but then, you know, 10, 15, 20 years into the job, now I kind of understand it's just, you know, it's connections. It's making sure that in putting yourself out there,
right,
like you're saying, Raph, and, you know, getting, whether it's in the community and, you know, like attending different like charity events or whatever that may be, whether it's connecting with, you know, local organizations, you know, local businesses. I mean, I think it's in maybe, you know, back in the day, and this was, again, talk about the differences of, you know, entering the field, you know, 5 years ago versus 25 years ago. There was, I mean, the internet was just, yes, here we go. Sorry, everyone. But literally, like, you know, I mean, the internet was just becoming popular, right? In regards to Netscape and all that stuff. I remember like the first time the libraries, you know, the Homer Babbage Library at UConn had all of these, you know, old PCs, but you could surf the net, right? And so there wasn't LinkedIn, and there wasn't, you know, that's my point. There wasn't LinkedIn, there wasn't social networking, there wasn't anything along those lines. So I think the concept of networking and being able to connect with people is a whole lot easier than it was, you know, sort of 25 years ago. However, certainly 25 years ago, to argue on that side, or at least to say that the value there, it was all personal. Like when you were networking, right, you were sitting down, you were meeting people, you were having a cup of coffee with them or lunch or whatever that is. So it was always on a one-to-one basis. Explain what your concept of networking, right? So we know it's important, whether it was 25 years ago or 5 years ago or now. Sort of like, you know, wisdom or what you've learned to a young professional, a young graduate about to come out. Sort of explain networking in your own terms and how would you approach it? Today. Today, exactly.
Yeah, I think, you know, you kind of hit the nail on the head. Like, you know, back when you were graduating and breaking into the industry, like there wasn't LinkedIn. Today, you know, the reach and your ability to go network with anyone in the world is at your fingertips, right? So leveraging LinkedIn, leveraging these different platforms that your schools offer, I think could be pretty critical because some people might say, oh, it's LinkedIn, this person's the head of whatever firm, SHP, Matt's one of the partners. Oh, he's not going to respond to my LinkedIn. Well, no, Matt might if on the right day if he's able to, if he's on LinkedIn, right? So I think it's just at a high level, just trying to understand that you can connect with anybody and just making sure that you're taking the opportunity to craft, well thought out messages to people. Because again, you can literally network with anyone at any point in time now, just because you have the reach on LinkedIn, and there's Handshake. That's like another platform that schools use. So yeah.
That's pretty cool. So and I'm curious, not just for yourself, but also for anyone else that's your age right now, no matter what the industry. Now, and then walk me through Stonehills. You mentioned about there was a networking thing there, or sort of like there was the school sponsored internships, and is that something? But that's something that you have to do before you graduate, though, right? Or what happens after you graduate?
So obviously, like schools will have their co-ops. Right, like Stonehill didn't necessarily have a co-op program, but obviously Northeastern and other schools do have that, where they require you to go grab an internship going into your junior or senior year. And again, firms like us at SHP, we have a great internship program, right, where Michelle, she leads it, and every year, we have a handful of applicants that are trying to just get more exposure into the field.
And just a real quick plug, it's internship. Like
wink, wink.
SHP Financial, we have shipmates here, and so I just want to make sure it's internship, no I on the internship. Okay, continue.
No pun intended.
Yeah, we're very clever here.
Very cheesy.
Can't you tell? Okay. Continue.
There we go. So I think like back to your point is like, again, I'm actually now trying to remember.
We were talking about like the school networking and the co-op program and things
correct,
like that.
Yes. Yeah. So obviously like Handshake is another one of those platforms where it's, I think, like a universal database for all these like universities to go in and plug their internship programs, right? They have partnerships with different alumni, different like firms, institutions, and it's just a way for you to go in, and they have events where you can go in, again, you show up with your resume, again, it's basically you shaking hands and making introductions.
But just Stonehill guys and gals.
Yes. So like Stonehill will have theirs. Obviously, like UConn will likely have theirs now. So again, different events. But again, it's all about putting yourself out there.
Right.
Right. If you're not one of those people that are kind of just going to wait until senior year or whatever it is to try and find something, well, no job's going to come to you. You got to go and make your own luck and basically just put yourself out there, right?
That's fantastic. Okay, so now, so we decide that financial planning. So we get this internship, and we say, you know what? Ooh, I kind of like this. I like working with the clients, and maybe a little bit less in the books, or a little bit less on the accounting, and more kind of client facing.
Correct,
as the term that we use. So how does one become a financial advisor? Let's literally like give us some basic block and tackle.
Yeah. So the basic starting points is your securities licenses. So, the way I started in the industry, I was, to use the technical term, I was on the broker-dealer side. So what I needed was my Series 65 and my Series 7. So for me, the 7 allows financial advisors to theoretically buy securities on behalf of clients. But obviously, being on the independent side, we have our investment committee that does that for us now. The Series 65 allows you to provide financial advice to clients, right, for and on their behalf. So those are kind of the initial starting points that you need before you can even, again, provide recommendations, put together those types of, investment portfolio recommendations, however you want to phrase it. And that process generally takes anywhere from 6 to 12 months.
Okay.
Right. Obviously, if you're working full time while studying, could be shorter, longer, depending on, how disciplined you are. But again, usually those 2 exams are what you need to start. Obviously, SHP's, on the independent side. So, most advisors just need their 65. But then, that again, that's just the starting points.
But you're working throughout it. So you were able to continue to work in the financial planning industry while you're studying
full-time.
To get your license.
Correct. I was working full time while kind of doing these exams, or the studying at night. And then you would, obviously, when you're ready, you go take the exams.
Okay, so now we have that license, which is basically sort of like a driver's license.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to go down into the weeds, because I know there's Series 65 and 63 and Series 7, and I think there's a bunch of them out there.
There's a bunch,
But okay, so you're working while you're studying. Now you get your license, and so it's basically a driver's license. And so from that point on, though, how do you start to sort of enhance your career? I mean, is it just experience? And if you have that license, can you go in any direction that you want? I mean, I guess so. Now you have a year under your belt. You have your license, and now you're professional or compliant. And then I guess how do you further your career, right? I mean, do you pick a lane at that point, almost like law school, or not really?
Yeah, I tell people, like. And again, I'm going to use a few examples. Like, if you enjoy the client-facing aspect, well, then again, you kind of stay in the lane of like, I'm going to be a financial advisor. Mm-hmm. And again, me and Chris are fortunate enough to be under, your tutelage, tooting your horn a bit, where the career growth and the opportunity to carve your own lane is there, right? But then if you're not necessarily so much on the client-facing aspect, but you do enjoy investments, right? We've had advisors go from the advisory team to, the trading team, right? The investment committee. I think Dave Hathaway.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, so I think within, once you start, you get licensed, you figure out, hey, where are my strong points, right? Am I good client-facing? Am I more technical, and maybe less client-facing, right? Trying to figure out where your strong suits are, and then you kind of make the initial pivots from there. And obviously, the hope is you kind of latch onto a strong firm that gives you that upward mobility to kind of play to your strengths and, develop any weaknesses that you might have. So.
And I think some of the other, just to add to that, and some other thoughts, recent graduates, not just your own experience, but others. I mean, you're also deciding sort of like the level of net worth to work with. I mean, there's something called like high net worth clients. There's ultra high net worth clients. And so literally there are what are called family offices, right? And so what a family office is focus on the term family, right? Where it helps one family, or at least how they originally started. Right. So imagine helping, the Rockefellers, the Kennedys, the Roosevelts, things along those lines. So an entire office, an entire firm was sort of founded to help manage the assets of this one family. Now, that's a very simplistic explanation. They come in many different shapes and sizes. But imagine if you're a recent graduate and you say, okay, I really want to work with the ultra high net worth. Well, there are these family offices, and what's interesting about that is that you're not necessarily, client-facing isn't necessarily the original, patriarch or whomever, made the money, like John D. Rockefeller. Now you're talking with their kids, grandkids, great-grandkids.
The lineage.
Yeah, right. So now your client is their great-great-grandson, but you're still helping to steward, the original wealth. Or on the opposite side of that are what are called the wealth creators. And these are majority of SHP clients, if not all, are the ones that sort of saved, earned, maybe there was a little inheritance here and there, but primarily they created their own wealth. They saved their own retirement, IRAs, 401ks, however they got there. And so that's kind of who SHP obviously helps serve. But I just want to kind of share that to our listeners to kind of get an idea that not only when you say, okay, client-facing and things along those lines, there's a wide range of...
who we service.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Or who the industry serves.
Correct.
As well. So that's just, again, food for thought for anyone that's thinking about this path. The other thing, if you don't mind, explain a little bit about the different designations, because when it comes to there's CFPs and certified financial planners, and there's chartered financial analysts, and and sometimes there's all these letters that are after
alphabet soup.
Yeah, exactly. So just for all our listeners, what are some of those designations, and then how do you get those?
Yeah, so the most common one, at least for financial planners, is the one that you obviously have, the Certified Financial Planner designation, CFP. So again, I tell people that's the equivalent of like a CPA, right? But for financial planners. Obviously, you mentioned the CFA, Chartered Financial Analyst exam. I think that's like a 3-step exam where, again, if you're looking to get on the investment side of the world, obviously we have a few CFAs on our team. That gives you direct, high-level analysis, if you want to call it that, into just managing portfolios. Right.
Yeah.
So it's much more technical, but the CFP gives you, the planning background you need to be a financial advisor.
And I think too about that, I mean, that's something that is sort of part of our DNA here at SHP, because the planning, like those 5 areas, the income, investment, taxes, healthcare, and legacy planning are based on the CFP's curriculum of the 5 different areas.
Correct.
That when you do embark on that designation, you're learning, you're diving into income planning, into investment planning, into tax planning, and so it gives you a wealth of knowledge in all 5 of those areas to then be able to provide advice on all 5 of those areas.
Correct. Yep.
And so I sometimes liken it to that if you get your license, right, like we were talking earlier about your Series 65 and Series 7 and this and that and the other thing. I mean, let me ask you, Raph, just because you have your driver's license, does that make you a good driver?
Not necessarily, right?
Yeah,
so
right.
it's just as, it's only as good as the person behind the wheel.
Right.
In a sense, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
and that's why, like, I personally, purposely made sure to really make sure that the CFP and getting my own designation would be, so like, I wanted everyone to know that not only did I have my license,
it's like an accreditation on top.
Yeah,
of
it's like I'm a good driver, right? Like not only do I have a license to be a financial advisor, but I'm a good good advisor.
Correct.
Because of that background and going through that that process.
It's kind of similar to like people in the tax world, right? Like you have EAs and you have CPAs. Mm-hmm. Obviously, EAs are licensed to file people's taxes, but when you're working with a CPA, it's kind of again just another layer of comfort, another notch of like accreditation, if you will.
Yeah.
So,
and I was gonna say too, just so you know, I mean, because Raph hears this all the time, especially and Chris and Brad. It's like trying to get these guys to get the CFPs as much as possible, only because it's like do it now when you're young, before the kids start to come, and
don't have necessarily the time.
Yeah,
bandwidth.
Yeah. They'll start to they'll have means or wants of their needs of their own.
Correct.
So they'll start to take away a little bit of your own. There's less me time.
Luckily, I'll take the me time when I can get them, and then apply it to the CFP.
Yeah. So really, just trying to do that little plug there at that point. So, all right, everyone. So again, recent graduates. Here we have the idea of networking, and whether it is electronic or still more of the traditional in person. That is crucial in regards to whatever finding out, and that allows you to kind of explore different industries.
Correct.
At that point, right? And then if you do eventually decide that the financial planning and finance is that, at least when it comes to our world, there's licenses, and then you sort of also decide as to where on the net worth spectrum do you want to work? And I'd also add too, you mentioned about obviously a good firm. I know I'm not no more shameless plugs, but more so that the firms themselves are also very different size, so. And also very sometimes very different structure. And what I mean by that is that there are kind of independent advisors, and then there are teams. And so if you don't mind, explain a little bit about how our team works, and about because our firm, obviously we can speak from experience, is more team-based. So what are some of the pros and cons of working with the team?
It's a good question. So, and I'll kind of answer that by talking about the firm that I previously came from, which, again, they were basically sole prac advisors, right? It was a family office, and that structure was vastly different from the sense of they were kind of just maintaining their existing book of business, and they didn't really have the bandwidth to build out kind of what SHP's built out, the investment committee in-house. Most firms that you'll see will be like a solo advisor, and they have to outsource some of those things, right? So, SHP's fortunate enough where we've been able to build the investment committee, our new business team, all these different components, right? Where outside of you guys seeing me and Matt in meetings talking with clients, we've built out this kind of infrastructure behind the scenes where, again, it's a very much a team-based approach that allows us to, again, really focus on just that individualized planning, hitting on everything that you talked about that the CFP kind of preaches, and, we relate to the advisors. Right?
Well, and I'd say that, and it's almost, this is kind of along the same lines, but I mean, for anyone that's actually looking for an advisor, an interesting question, or let's say looking for a career or looking for a firm, whether to work for or work with, is the question of, okay, what's outsourced and what's not outsourced?
It's a big question.
Yeah. I mean, there's a huge industry that the listeners would not know about, and that's what's called TAMPs. Can you give the actual one?
Turnkey Asset Management Program, I believe.
Okay, thank you. Much better. That's why we have you here. That's why right. You're the specialist here to walk us through this world. Thank you, Rep.
I got you.
But it's their clients are the financial advisors, right? So let's say there's a small financial advisor, he's hanging a shingle there on Main Street, and you can just say, okay, all right, that's interesting. So, okay, how do you operate if you're just one or two people or whatever that may be? And that's because they can outsource their investment advice, right? Or their investment management. I mean, these TAMPs are these Turnkey Asset Management Program. Of course.
There we go.
These TAMPs, these turnkey guys, will provide, will manage their portfolios, obviously for a fee, and so that there are fees sort of embedded in on these different layers. But they'll be able to pipe into these high quality investment portfolios that are managed third party, right? Or billing is done third party. Compliance sometimes is done third party. Sometimes interior. Both insource and outsource. So it's good to know about how kind of the industry works, whether you're thinking about entering the field and working for a smaller firm, and it's like, okay, how the heck do they even operate? To going with a larger firm where a lot of that stuff might be in-house. And then there's also, there's blends. I mean, like we particularly, like SHP, will outsource some of our municipal bond portfolio work.
Right. Yeah,
because it's just because there are a lot of specialists that are, unless we're going to build out this massive bond, as an example, this massive bond trading desk and things along those lines, it's actually more economical for everyone, whether it's time, and more efficiency on time, or whether it's more efficiency, ideally, on performance, it makes sense to outsource. Other things, not so much.
Not so much,
right? Because whether it's new business or financial planning and things along those lines, things along those that are high touch. I mean, we believe that has to be done in house because you want to have a complete control and oversight of that. So I just want to point that out as to some of the other things you might not know about our industry.
It's funny too, when you talk about that. Prospective clients that we meet with when they share their statements with us, if they come from those bigger banks like a Wells Fargo, Bank of America, we look at their portfolios and we see that, it's not necessarily managed in-house by Bank of America. It might be outsourced by like Eagle Investments or something like that. And I think sometimes clients, when we share that with them, right, when they're like, oh, really? I thought Bank of America was managing that.
Yes.
So it's, you always just want to make sure, again, it might sound commonsensical, but whoever's managing your money, you want to know, is that person actually managing my money, or are they outsourcing that to somebody that I'm maybe not that familiar with?
Yeah, we sometimes talk about sort of like the proximity. Excuse me, the proximity to your money, right? Like how close are you, and how many layers are there in between? But it's a really, really good point. Okay, so then the other thing so now you kind of understand the different type of firms, the different type of clients, and the only thing I was going to really end with, and I'm just curious your opinion on this, and because I mentioned at the beginning, and I really want to stress this. At least when it comes to our lane and where we have chosen, I just want to emphasize that the financial planning world is very, as I said, relationship driven. I mean, it is all about relationships and how much you connect, and because it's a service industry, right? I mean, we financial services is technically where we fall under when it comes to the category, because we're providing a service. Because, joke around about our previous podcast. A client doesn't need me or Raph or anyone to buy NVIDIA, right? They can go ahead and buy NVIDIA on whatever platform and custodian that you want to work with. So we're not just these, like our relationship with our clients is not this just transactional type of world. And because we don't live in that transactional type of world, how we connect and how we relate in the closeness that we are to understanding our clients is crucial.
Yeah.
So I guess, is that something that you learn through time, or is that something that, no, it's almost like it comes naturally to some, and others it's a skill that they can learn? Do you see what I mean?
Listen, I would tell you it's definitely something that you initially have like that built-in piece of you, like built in from the standpoint of, I always thought that growing up and again interacting with people and being able to connect with people on a deeper level was just something that came naturally to me. And I think the emotional component is huge. And, some people's emotional IQ, EQ, whatever you want to call it, might be higher than others. I'm sure you could develop it, but I think it was just something, at least personally, and you might say the same for yourself, was something that maybe always came naturally to you. And in our business, right, somebody comes to you with $1 million, to, $2 million, whatever the number is, right, they're entrusting their entire life savings to you. So being able to put yourself on their side of the desk and say, okay, can I feel what that person's feeling, right? Because they're about to retire. They don't know, how they're going to now use this entire bucket to supplement their Social Security or their pension, and they have all these expenses. Maybe they got a mortgage, like you name it, right? You go down the item. But can you put yourself on the other side of the table and feel what they feel? And I think that's, forget about all the technical things that we talked about today for a second. If you can do that as a starting point, and then you kind of layer in all the technical things that you need, that's 101 to becoming, a very good financial advisor.
Great.
What I think of. So
yeah, no, and Raph, I think that's a great way to wrap it up, because think of it this way, right? So for all of our recent grads, or all of our dads and moms out there, wondering where their kid, where their child is going to go, it's not only is it networking, like we talked about, making sure that you, both traditional ways of meeting people and shaking hands and having lunch, as well as the more modern LinkedIn and all the messaging that happens there. And I guess there's a handshake type of service or connection platform that's there. Excuse me. Of course, it's degree, getting your degree and graduating. We wouldn't be having this conversation if they hadn't graduated, of course. Then you have your licenses, and then the designations on top of that really further your knowledge, such as the CFP or the CFA or the SEMA and different things. But don't forget what Raph was just saying at the very end there, which was that without a good emotional intelligence, or EQ, without the ability to really put yourself on the other side of the table, that is just as important as all these other technical things and all these other things that you have to. Obviously, you got to get that degree and you got to get that license. But I think to truly separate yourself is that type of emotional connection and being able to put yourselves in the client's shoes, especially during very stressful times, whether it's market stress or life stress. And I think that alone will separate you and lead you in the right direction if you do eventually join our kin and in the financial planning world. So, any final words, Raph, before I wrap up?
Couldn't have said it any better. And again, whether it's pursuing wealth management, right, being a financial advisor, or anything else, right? You might go into private equity, or if you're more technical, you go into the hedge fund space. Regardless of what it is, I think everything that we talked about today, minus like the designations, will at least kind of get you thinking about the right things. And hopefully that's what we're doing today.
Absolutely.
Just get you thinking. So.
All right, Raph. So again, thanks so much for coming back, for a returning guest and putting up with it.
I'll have to bring the tie next time.
Yeah, for sure. You got to do that, and it's hysterical too. We were, because every once in a while, just a little. Also, we have our obviously we have our producers in the audience, but occasionally we have compliance in the audience. But the best part is that compliance isn't going after bad jokes. Right. So all the bad jokes are going to go through. That you can't.
Aaron, are we good on that?
Yeah,
we're good.
Yeah, because there's no SEC guideline about bad jokes. So we're full steam ahead here.
That's it.
At the SHP Retirement Podcast. So thank you all so much for joining us today, and certainly listen again. Thank you for your attention, and be well. Thanks for listening to the Retirement Roadmap Podcast by SHP Financial. If you've enjoyed today's episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button so future episodes are automatically downloaded directly to your device. And if you've liked what you heard, please share the show. Create your own little ripples so we can help even more people with their retirement goals. If you want access to all past interviews, including notes, resources, and exclusive content from SHP Financial, visit shpfinancial.com/podcast. Thanks again for joining us on the Retirement Roadmap podcast. And for all the attorneys out there, disclaimers and disclosures, I'm just going to put on my super serious voice and add our own. No statements made during the Retirement Roadmap podcast shall constitute tax, legal, or accounting advice. You should consult your own legal or tax professional on any such matters. Information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities, investments, or investment strategies. Investments involve risk, and unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Our investment advisory services are offered through SHP Wealth Management LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Insurance sales are offered through SHP Financial LLC. Our advisors and insurance reps may offer clients advice and/or products from each entity. No client is under any obligation to purchase any insurance product.